Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? With the roster cuts that came and went yesterday, the Saints then have announced their practice squad. Every team, of course, can sign 16 players to the practice squad for New Orleans. Let's just run through very quickly the players that the Saints have added on their practice squad. And, of course, most notably, Ian Book was claimed off of waivers. So Ian Book's career in New Orleans is over. I'll get to that in just a quick second. The practice squad members for the New Orleans Saints, as announced by the team, are... Here you go. Josh Andrews, Taco Charlton, which is good to see that Taco Charlton who was cleared waivers and is now back with New Orleans. Dijene Dixon, DeMarcus Fields, Vincent Gray, Chase Hansen signed back on the practice squad. J.P. Holtz, tight end that they like a lot. Jordan Jackson, who was obviously a draft pick this year, who's been injured. Lucas Krull, the tight end out of Pitt, the undrafted free agent, is on the practice squad, as is Nick Martin. Kirk Merritt, who was one of the practice squad one of the training camp standouts this year, has been signed to the practice squad. Christian Ringo, who's a defensive lineman that has played a good bit for the Saints, they like a lot. Nafai Sewell, who was getting first team reps late in camp, has been added to the practice squad. Rashid Saheed has been added, as has Eric Wilson. So if they do need linebacker help, Eric Wilson is a guy who has played linebacker. He's been a Sunday player that he could certainly be promoted, as is Nafai Sewell. Chase Hansen, who got some run last year at linebacker with the Saints, but admittedly was not very good. But he's there as a potential backup option as well. So that's the Saints practice squad, those that were cut, waived, and then re-signed. The most notable roster move today was the Eagles putting in a waiver claim on Ian Book. Field Yates reported it first, and that means Ian Book's time in New Orleans is done after 1 year. If you're not sure how the process works, essentially, if you waive a player, any team can put in a waiver claim on a player, and it's basically awarded in order. So you start with whoever was. So Jacksonville would be first, and you'd go in order subsequent based on what amounted to the draft order, the order of finish from a year ago. So the Saints are 18th in that order for waiver claims. They picked 12 when they took Olave, but remember they traded up twice to get there. So the Eagles claimed Ian Book, and certainly the Saints were hoping that Ian Book would clear waivers. No team would claim him, and then he would be able to be added to the practice squad, and they could be a developmental player. We talked about it last week when I very overtly claimed you should be cheering against Ian Book in that final preseason game. And I meant it. I mean, not in a literal sense, but in the sense that you want him to not perform well, so there's less of a chance that a team would put in a waiver claim on Ian Book so he could clear waivers, sign him to the practice squad, and maybe continue allowing him to develop. But that was not the case. Clearly, Philadelphia liked Ian Book enough to claim him off of waivers, which means he takes up one of their 53-man roster spots. So their three quarterbacks now are Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew, and Ian Book. They will carry three quarterbacks. I know a lot of the reaction today from Saints fans is going to be about Ian Book and how this is a wasted draft pick and a lot of disappointment, which no doubt there's disappointment, and there's justifiable disappointment. You used a fourth-round pick on this guy, and he didn't perform for you a year ago. Now, in total fairness, there's not a quarterback in the NFL that could have beaten the Dolphins on that Monday Night Football game with the roster Ian Book had. I mean, sort of infamously, the story goes that players were sort of introducing themselves in the locker room because they were just cobbling together a roster because the whole thing had been completely gutted because of COVID. So I don't hold that Monday Night Football game against Ian Book. I do hold the fact that he stunk in 2 preseasons against Ian Book. And the possibility that maybe he's just not going to ever be a good NFL quarterback. It's not to say that you judge a player entirely based on a couple of preseasons, but you got to show some improvement such to allow a team to think you valuable enough to keep you. The the problem is, especially with quarterback, is you keep a man on one of your guys on a 53-man roster. On game days, if he's active, which most likely he would not be, but everyone has to contribute, and those roster spots are too valuable. I mean, as much as I rant and rave about Tre'Quan Smith, the point being, they will use Tre'Quan Smith on game day. I don't like him, but clearly the Saints do, and still feel like he's got a purpose on game day. And look, sometimes you just miss. And Ian Book is just a miss. That's all there is to it. So you cut your losses. You move on. And this is just going to get more attention because he's a quarterback. And look, I'm okay taking a quarterback in round 4. You take your shot. We're going to talk a lot, not just this year, but in the future, about Ian Book as a 4th-round miss because he's a quarterback. We don't talk about? Rick Leonard. He's a 4th-round pick, didn't make the team his rookie year. We don't talk about? Kyrie Fort. He was a 4th-round pick, didn't make the team. We don't talk about? Stanley Arno and Chip Vaughn. Remember the Wake Forest teammates that got drafted back-to-back picks back in 2009? They both stunk. Now, we do talk about Antonio Pittman, who was also a 4th-round pick, but that's only because of the synergies with Pierre Thomas. They cut Antonio Pittman as a rookie 4th-round pick and kept Pierre Thomas. So you take your shot on a quarterback sometimes, because what if it's Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick, y'all. I get it, it's an outlier. What if Garner Minshew was a 6th-round pick? Was that worth it? The guy's become a good NFL quarterback. I'm not telling you he's ever going to be a Pro Bowl caliber player, but he has started, and he's certainly a very capable backup. I mean, throughout the history of the league, there's examples of guys who are mid or late round picks who become good players. Not everybody's Tom Brady. Of course, Tom Brady's the outlet, but not just Tom Brady. Y'all realize Roger Staubach was a 10th round pick? Bart Starr was a 17th round pick. I mean, there are those throughout history that were late round picks that became great players. But the Saints took Mark Bulger out of West Virginia in 2000 in the 6th round. Mark Bulger became a starter in the NFL. That's why you take those guys, if you feel like you've got an appropriate draft grade on them and they're there. I mean, Mark Brunell was a 5th-round pick. Rich Gannon became an MVP. He was a 4th-round pick. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. He was a 9th-round pick out of Florida State. I mean, there's others. Matt Hasselbeck. Matt Hasselbeck was a playoff quarterback in Seattle. He was a 6th-round pick. Mark Rippon won a Super Bowl. He was a 6th-round pick. I mean, there are those examples throughout history, which is why if there's a guy on the board, and it's quarterback, and you have an appropriate grade, and you're interested, it's okay to take that player. More often than not, though, it's not going to work out. But more often than not, it's not going to work out for players at any position in those, in the 4th round when you get mid-late rounds. And look, yeah, man, I mean, there are times where, Jermon Bushrod was a 4th-round pick. That worked out great for New Orleans. And sometimes those do work out. Sometimes you hit big. And sometimes you bust. But, man, you could look through the history of the NFL draft and look at guys that were mid-round picks and see teams that took a shot on guys at certain positions. Like, remember Kyle Lauletta from Richmond? He was a 4th-round pick of the Giants. Quarterback out of Richmond. 4th-round pick of the Giants back in 2018. Took their shot. Didn't make it. Okay, you move on. So, I don't mind that they took Ian Book. They liked the player. They had an appropriate grade on him. They took him in round 4. It didn't work. Neither did Rick Leonard. Okay, on to the next. You're good at quarterback right now. You'll have to address it again in the future. And next year, if there's a guy somewhere along the draft that they want to take a shot on, take him. And you'll live with the results if you believe your scouting is good. And the Saints' scouting has been good. They deserve the benefit of the doubt with it. It's unfortunate that Ian Book didn't work out. We're just putting way more attention on it because of the position he plays. So Ian Book, the Saints waived him. No doubt we're hoping to sign him to the practice squad, but he did not clear waivers. Ian Book is now a Philadelphia Eagle. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.